Okay, and the floor is yours.
Okay, welcome Gülşah. Just a second. Okay, welcome Gülşah. Thank you hocam. Gülşah, let me introduce you first. Gülşah Kazancı is a senior student in the Department of English Language and Literature at Çanakkale 18 Mart University. Her academic interests include post-colonial theory, political philosophy. She aims to pursue a master's degree and work on refugee literature by theoretically synthesizing post-colonial studies and class-centered theories very well indeed. And today you are going to talk about Charles Bukowski as far as I know.
Yes.
Okay, the floor is yours. You can share your screen with us. Okay, I'm here. Good luck.
Yes. Thank you so much. I'm trying to share it. Sorry. Yes. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. Is it okay for changing the slides, though?
That's all okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the floor is yours, Gülşah.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank for the organizers for this amazing conference. And first of all, I will give introductory knowledge of Bukowski's literary style. And then in order to analyze the protagonist's nihilist stances to the world and to the American dream, Nietzsche's narratives of nihilism are incorporated. After that, to comprehend how the mind of Henry Chinaski works about the situation of the people who conform the institutions, the notion of misanthropy and Lacan's identity formation are integrated. And then I will conclude. Charles Bukowski preferred to write about his life experiences in order to create a comprehensive understanding of the mainstream society. And he created a persona named Henry Chinaski as his alter ego. The literary movement that Bukowski is associated with is dirty realism, and the term is coined by Bill Bufford in the magazine titled Granta. According to Bufford, dirty realism focuses on the belly side of contemporary life. And Bufford states that dirty realism is actually tragedies about people who are waitresses in roadside cafes, cashiers in supermarkets, construction workers, secretaries, or drifters in a world cluttered with oppressive details of modern consumerism. Bukowski's works fit into that definition since Bukowski mentions his several experiences of being employed in lots of different jobs and meeting with colleagues. Bukowski talks about the dirty side of life, focusing on the fake side of American dream and upward mobility. Now let's focus on nihilism and how it can be applied to the ideals of Henry Chinaski. The origin of the nihilist discourse cannot be located at one certain time since it has been interconnected with disbelief and negative stances. For a long time, the term has been practiced as a marker of atheists because nihilism had been evaluating religious norms. Nietzsche recognized that the root of nihilism occurred in the Christian-centric belief system, in which the process of thinking formed with conducted rules. He also thought that this style of existing would be confronted by society and mentions that religion gives a fabricated notion of the existence with an afterlife promise. And as a result of that, the decisions of the people wouldn't happen in terms of free will but a reward. The protagonist experienced the absurdity of the ideals of the church, which prohibits desires in life. And Chinaski explains his feelings by saying that I had decided against religion a couple of years back. If it were true, it made fools out of people, or it drew fools. And if it weren't true, the fools were all the more the foolish. Chinaski realized that not only religion, but also all institutions can effortlessly control the people by creating a divine aim for their existence. With the motivation of a prize, the manipulation process of the society can be easily achieved. And considering that one of the major meta-narratives of American Dream is the motto of toil and you will be rewarded, one can realize that it seems similar to the idea of the church about the afterlife promise. In that sense, one can say that American Dream is a fabricated notion and a control mechanism for the working class motivation to continue working hard in the capitalist society for the gain of the rich people. In Hamon Rye, Chinaski is asked to pen a paragraph about President's upcoming speech, and Chinaski pens that at home everything was going to be all right. We shouldn't worry. All we had to do was to believe in America. There would be enough jobs for everybody. He immediately comments on what he wrote by saying, "So that's what they needed. Lies, beautiful lies. That's what they needed. People were fools." As a result, one can say that Chinaski sees this control mechanism side of the American dream and tries to debunk it, and in a way he wishes that people would confront those dictated dogmas over them. For another example, the poem titled Dinosauria V can be analyzed. The narrator mentions how the world works. He starts with how he has no control to change his world, so he tries to focus on the problems that exist in the real world we live in. Born into hospitals which are so expensive that it is cheaper to die, into lawyers who charge so much it is cheaper to plead guilty, into a country where the jails are full and the madhouses closed, into a place where the masses elevate fools into rich heroes. He sees what really happens, and the life is occupied with fraud and duplicity as soon as one is born and continues to live. Bukowski mentions the corrupted institutions lead individuals into enslavement in the name of work to survive and make them dream working hard continuously. Now let's focus on the notion of misanthropy and identity formation and how they can be observed in the thoughts of Chinaski along with American Dream. The dictionary meaning of the term misanthropy describes an individual who has hatred towards human beings. Misanthropists generally have seen enough from their contact with society and think that humankind is corrupted with greed, excessive pride, and egocentricity. Since people follow the rules that are created for them, they would willingly do whatever is required to outperform others. Misanthropy is the awareness of these actions, and it emphasizes that there is a lack of genuineness among society. As a result of this process of the mind, misanthropists prefer to reject humanity and expel themselves from society in order to experience isolation in peace. From his early ages, Henry Chinaski was a lonely character. It is severely mentioned that at school, Chinaski was not able to understand his peers as he didn't care what they do. In the novels, the reader can see that trying to communicate with human beings is unpleasant for Henry because he knows that humankind acts differently from who they really are to feel more appreciated. And he rejects any social interaction by claiming that I was a man who thrived on solitude. Without it, I was like another man without food or water. Henry thinks that there would never occur an honest and open conversation with people as try to impress others with fake identities. Therefore, he chooses to alienate himself from the pursuit of dictated American dream too. And he comments on those who comply with the societal norms by saying that then came the Christmas party. I didn't like parties. I didn't know how to dance and people frightened me, especially people at parties. They attempted to be sexy and gay and witty, and although they hoped they were good at it, they weren't. They were bad at it. Their trying so hard only made it worse. In these lines, one can see that how he separates himself from public sphere and criticizes the people who follows the norms because those people are the representations of American dream for Bukowski. In this part, Lacan's the mirror stage theory is incorporated in order to comprehend how his nihilistic and misanthropic characteristics are developed. The mirror stage begins with when a baby is no longer attached to the mother's breast, and then the exploration of the self is activated. A baby starts to become more conscious of its surroundings. Lacan mentions that a child beginning to discover its ideal I has a vital impact on self-identification. The image that the child sees is deceptive because the child may never achieve its ideal doppelganger as in a mirror. After that point, one can try to expand their self-fulfillment. However, this still can result in an existential crisis, which can be worse with the identification of self by other people's opinions. And as the I is a fantasy, one can be unable to recognize the authentic identity. Chinaski, by definition, Bukowski was raised in a very abusive, strict family environment where the father beat his son and wife along with thinking that they are a rich family. In Hamon Rai, Henry Chinaski mentions he's not being allowed to play with other children since the father of Henry imagines himself as an upper class and those children as, in quotation marks, unfortunate ones. Chinaski knows that they are not rich and he never identifies himself as the father does. Both Henry's dislike towards people and his incapability to identify himself as a rich person create his identity. This situation of Henry can be given as an example of Lacan's suggestion on how societal burdens have a role to shape an identity. In this case, societal burdens are created by the parent as a role that he should conform. And as a result of this dilemma, this paradoxical situation, he finds the solution in hate. In the poem titled My Father, Bukowski pens the situation of his father by saying that my father was a truly amazing man. He pretended to be rich. Even though we lived on beans and mush and weenies, when we sat down to eat, he said, not everybody can eat like this. In this poem, Chinaski gives examples from their daily life as a child, and one can see how a father can influence the child's ideas. And with this poem, Bukowski wants to emphasize an immigrant family's believing in upward mobility and the American dream and how it can create an illusion on people's minds and lives. To conclude, one can say that Charles Bukowski was a creation of a traumatic childhood and a tough life. In his works, his alter ego character, Henry Chinaski, depicts the world and the people in a negative way. This might show Bukowski's approach to articulate his thoughts to the constructed ideologies like American dream and upward mobility myth. Chinaski chooses to be in solitude and questions the institutions. As a result of that, Bukowski's characters are mostly portrayed as hypocrites who live in a corrupted world and they try to enforce their arguments to others. For Chinaski, the world is chaotic and filled with misery, and the fake realities of American dream and upward mobility made people and the world more intolerable because the poor only get poorer. In a way, one can say that his harsh experiences and his awareness of the realities of American dream made him a nihilist and a misanthropist. He just dreams a world that people would be genuine and be aware of the dictated so-called truths. So thank you for your time, and here are my references. If you have any questions, I would like to answer them.
Okay. Thank you, Gülşah, for your very content and lovely presentation. Thank you very much. Now the floor is open to discussions and questions, and I see somebody is raising hand. Let me check first. Beytullah, do you want to ask a question or comment?
I would like to ask Gülşah how much she agrees with Charles Bukowski in this context.
Can you more contextualize the context for me?
Oh, sure. Do you agree with Charles Bukowski's view on the world where people are just greedy bastards and the world would be a much better place if people were just genuine from, well, if they were raised in an environment that encouraged them into being more genuine? How much do you agree with him on that one?
First of all, I would like to say that I agree with Bukowski, but not with his harsh ways. I don't comment. I wouldn't comment on the world with his words, to be honest. But when we look at the world we live in, we see the middle class people, and they try so hard to be in the upper class position, and this is what the American dream dictates to them. So in a way, they would do anything to be in the upper class. So I agree that the people are not genuine that much.
Okay, and you are agreeing with the writer, but not as harsh as his opinion, right?
Yes.
Okay, and Beytullah, again.
I would personally say Charles Bukowski's view on the world, although jaded and very, very, very edged due to the experiences he had, he is actually completely right in one way, but also completely wrong in the other. As in, yes, people are greedy and people are bound to get corrupted. And well, people always want more for themselves, which is 100%, astute observation here. But what Charles Bukowski misses to see here is that people are also capable of compassion, just as they are capable of being greedy. And yes, some people are not really lucky enough to be born into a compassionate family, but they're also capable of choosing who they surround themselves with. I feel, in my opinion, Bukowski's way of seeing the world is just a very misfortunate mind having to suffer through a very, well, undeserved hardship, let's say.
Yes, and I would like to also say that in his books he just focuses on his alter ego, but in real life he has so much passionate people that love himself, and he loved those people. But in his books he just talks with his alter ego.
Okay. Any other question or comment? We have plenty of time, actually.
I have a comment, actually, in connection to Beytullah's questions on Fitzgerald. I'd like to comment on Bukowski too. Because of the so-called American dream, people always have to wear masks, according to Bukowski. This is why he rejected. This is why he turned into nihilism all his life. And he suggested that people should take off their masks. In Pulp, for example, he has a certain indifferent attitude against death, an indifferent attitude against living. And that was one of the reasons his characters turn into alcoholism and drug abuse. I do not want to touch his life, that's another matter, but this is why he portrays characters who go into alcoholism and who abuse drugs, because he suggested that people always have to put off their masks, take off their masks, and be really genuine. And seeing that people can never be genuine, he turns into nihilism, in my opinion. And do you think that he was do you think that the reason he was seeking for genuine people in his life was due to the fact that he had a traumatic childhood?
Yes, I agree with that because he never he never was able to find the affection that he seeks from his father, and mother also was another victim of the father, but the mother had never stood up for the Bukowski while he was growing up because she was afraid too. This is what he says. So in a way, he wants the people genuine in the world, but when he realized that they are not, so as you say, he turns into alcoholism and then nihilistic stances. And he says, without alcohol and drug, I would suicide. The alcohol and drugs keep me helps him to live and helps him to write. He says.
Thank you.
Kind of existential crisis, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, comments for Gülşah? No?
Just one little thing I want to add, and then I'm done with everything I want to say. But
Okay.
it is actually terrifyingly consistent. Charles Bukowski's behavior, to say the least, the way he looks for genuine people in his life, because in child psychology, children with parents that are not just strict but also abusive, they start developing a severe trust issue towards their parents, which leads them to, look for people whom they can genuinely trust, but they never can because they've never seen true genuinity in their life before. So this basically leads to nihilism, is what I'm trying to say here, because they've never seen it, but they're looking for something they've never seen, which can also be seen in Charles Bukowski's most of his works, actually. I just wanted to add on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Beytullah. And I have another question. Yasin Ataman.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Well, about alcoholism and the utilization of drugs, I can say that it may be considered as an escape mechanism from the illusory fallacy of American dream that is created and imposed by the giants of the financial world. And for those, the pursuers whose minds are plagued with these ideas, using drugs and alcohols may be a way to escape from the reality that was created. So this was my comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
It is very true. Because of his existential crisis, he needed to find an escape mechanism for him to continue to live. So that was it. It's very true.
Okay, thank you. Is that all? It seems we don't have extra questions or comments.
Bukowski is not included in the canonical literature. Therefore, he's cult fiction. So not many people have read, supposedly, not many people have read Bukowski. Well, once in a while, I was the fan of Bukowski, but I haven't read any Bukowski for maybe 20 years, unfortunately. But the last book I read by Bukowski was Pulp, and I read it in, I don't want to say when. It was, ancient times. So, but I like Bukowski, and I like that indifferent attitude to life and death. I don't have that kind of attitude. I take it seriously, but I wish I could not. I wish I couldn't take life and death seriously this much. So that kind of approach you can observe in Bukowski's fiction. Yeah.
And also his main character, his Tchaikovsky. Is he like someone Tyler Durden in Palahniuk's novels? He is also a representative figure of alter ego of the character. And as far as I know, yes, I'm not quite expert on Bukowski, but he uses that character as his alter ego this time. Any similarities? Just out of curiosity.
Yes, in a way it is. And sorry.
No, please go on. I did not mean to interrupt you.
Okay, and I just want to say that John Fante was the inspiration for Bukowski. He refers him to as his god, and John Fante uses his alter ego too as a character called Bandini. So if you would like to read Bandini, sorry, Fante's books and Bukowski's books, you would see lots of similarities.
I just wanted to add with Charles Bukowski's works. I like to quote. I really like quoting this one line of his, just 2 words: "Don't try," which also kind of semi feeds into his nihilistic worldview. Nothing has any kind of meaning anyway, so don't try to be something that you're not. That's what he means by "don't try." Don't try to be someone who you aren't. Like, Charles Bukowski has written hundreds of stories, and only 2 of his stories were published in the newspaper, I believe, in his youth, if I'm not mistaken. I might be. I'm not that big on Bukowski, but I feel like his nihilistic worldview also kind of stems from his experience of sticking to his roots throughout his entire life.
Yes, and also, as I mentioned, he worked in lots of jobs where he actually across the America. He worked as a I don't know, milkman, a publicist in the very different job areas, and it can be adding up with his traumatic childhood, and those experiences led him to be his this way. And when you say "don't try," it's also he chooses to be that phrase on his grave. So when on his grave it says "don't try," and I understand that life is not worthy to try to live. I understand it like that, but everybody can interpret it differently.
Okay. Thank you very much, Gülşah, and also Beytullah. Thanks for your comments and questions. And I should thank the other participants here. Thank you for being here. And Hocam, floor is yours this time.
Thank you very much for chairing this session.
It's my pleasure.
Dr. Reyhan Özertanıyan, and thank you very much, Gülşah, for your presentation. And I would like to thank all the participants for their contributions, comments, and questions. And thanks for being with us. I am stopping recording now.